Hello everyone, it's Tracy here. I'm going to be scrapbooking a page today, and look at, I guess I'm standing because look at what happens every time I move my butt off the chair. So that's okay because I usually stand for this part anyways. I'm going to show you guys what I'm using to get started today. I am working on my 27-day challenge entry, although I can't win the prize because I'm giving away the prize, so that would hardly be fair. But I'm following this recipe today. If you missed this video, it's on my channel where I talk about what the challenge is. It's a recipe challenge, and I would be wearing my apron while I do this, except that my cat, as you can see, is sitting on it and on my chair. So I've got this recipe to follow. I need a 5x7 photo of myself. Rather than sending one out to be printed, because my printer only prints 4x6, what I did, or my photo printer that is, only prints 4x6. What I did was I printed a 5x7 photo of myself. It does have someone else in it, but it's mostly me, so I think it counts. I set the rules, so I'm going to say that it counts. And I printed it using my inkjet printer upstairs, just my regular printer. It's nothing fancy. It's very inexpensive, plain printer. It's an inkjet, and I used the packing tape transfer method, and I ended up with 3 different copies of it because I did it 3 different times, because I did it once to make sure that it was going to work, and then I did it once in my video, and then there was a little piece of paper left on my forehead, and I tried to pry off the tape to fix that little flaw, and I ended up making a little dent in the transparency, so then I wasn't 100% happy with that, so I just did the whole thing all over again a 3rd time. What I did when I did it the 3rd time was I actually left some wrinkles in the packing tape to show you guys what it looks like when you do that. And the result is this. So when you leave little wrinkles in the packing tape, it puts little wrinkles in your final product, and that's what it looks like. It's just kind of another little added interest. I would try to not have it go across a face. It did go across Sophia's face here. So this is the resulting transfer image, and I just put a piece of overhead transparency on it so that it wouldn't be sticky on the upside, because I actually want to use the opposite side. So I'm using the reverse image, so you'll notice that I'm pointing the opposite way, and so is Sophia, from our original print. And I'm not going to use this one I just put on vellum, just to see what it would look like on vellum. It gives it kind of like a hazy grayish look. I do like it better on just plain, so I attached the sticky side to transparency paper here, and I did the same thing on this. I don't know, I can't quite decide which one I'm going to use, which option. So I guess I'll think about that, and you'll see me come to that decision in the process video. I have 2 potential background papers. I love these 2 papers from Pink Paisley from the Take Me Away collection from Paige Evans, and I really love them. I especially love this one with this photo. I just like how it goes kind of like from dark to light. I have my recipe card that tells me that in addition to the black and white photo, I also need some paper pads, and I need to choose. So I have 2 picked out here. I have Flea Market, and I have the original Maggie Holmes collection in 6x6 paper pads. I haven't really used these very much, so I'd like to use them today, and I think that they kind of go with the vintage retro feel that these prints are going to give me. And what I need is 1 floral and 1 striped, at least. I might take more than that, but I'll be looking for a striped and a floral. And I really like this stripe right here, and I like this floral, and there's more inside as well. So there's more options. I also really like this one. And I like that one. And then, yeah, so I think that this is going to be my stripe, though. So I should try to find that and pull it out. So there we go. Well, so those are my options for floral and striped 6x6 papers. Then you need to use layering. Layering is the next part of the recipe, so I'll definitely layer because I almost always layer. And then you have to season it with mist or buttons or wood veneers or enamel dots or Nouveau crystal drops. So you need to garnish it with a title, so I always have titles, so that won't be hard for me, and then finish it by providing the sketch on the side. So this is the sketch that I'm going to use because this recipe does call for a sketch. Now this is from Creative Scrappers Volume 2. I'll leave the link in the information section for this video, and I'm on page 17, and it's this sketch right here that I'm using. All right, so let's just jump right into the process here. I have decided to stack these two transfers together so that they will create a darker image. And so I'm just going to excuse my head for a minute there while I sort that out. Now, the first time I did it, I didn't get them quite lined up perfectly, so I'm going to try it again. I used I'm just using my regular scrapbook adhesive. It's just a dot runner from Scrapbook Adhesives, which is a 3L company. And I am just lining them up really, really well. I didn't want to use liquid glue for two reasons. It would take too long to dry, and I don't know if liquid glue is really great at gluing two plasticky things together. And also, I didn't want it to show. So I know that the dot adhesive from Scrapbook Adhesives is clear, and it dries so that you can barely see it. So I thought that was a good choice. I just had to be really careful that I lined it up really, really well so that all of the little, I basically lined it up using Sophia's eyes and my glasses as the main kind of landmarks. Once they were all lined up, I knew that the rest of it would have to be lined up. So I'm thinking, as much as I like the idea of having that pink patterned background paper showing through, I felt like that was not going, it would be a little bit too much to have that in the background and have it also in the back of my photo. So, and plus I want to do some layers because that's part of the challenge. So I have my watercolor paper here. This is a pad of, I think they're 5.5 by 7.5 pieces of watercolor paper. It's cold press 140 pound watercolor paper. And it's one of my favorite kinds of watercolor paper because they're just really heavy, stiff pieces of paper, and you can really load on the water, and it's quite forgiving. So I also have my Koi watercolor portable set, which I just recorded a review on. So if you're interested in learning more about this set, you just check out my channel. It should be either right before or right after this one. That set comes with this water brush, so I'm going to go ahead and use it just for convenience sake. I prefer a regular brush, but I'm going to use this one because it's the brush I have at hand. So I'm just kind of playing around with what kind of colors I might want to use. I'm using the packaging technique where I'm just going to put that on some old packaging, smoosh it around, and just kind of dab it and smoosh it onto the paper. And this gives me a really nice, light, thin bit of color on the card. I really like the subtle effect of this. So I started with this blue, and now I'm sorry, I am going to eventually move my watercolors down so that you can see what colors I'm grabbing. But then I grabbed this pink one, and I went a little bit too intense there with the color. I really want this to be a very soft color, and I tend towards the more vibrant colors, so I have to always tone myself down when I'm doing these sorts of things when I want it to be light, because every time I intend to do a pastel-y type of watercolor effect, I always end up with super vibrant colors because I just like vibrant colors. So I'm trying to use a very, very light hand, which in the case of watercolors means lots and lots of water and very little pigment. So for the green, I'm combining two different shades of green, that lime green and then that darker green, to create a color that's sort of in between. And I'm making this color green because I'm realizing that So far, this watercolor piece does not match at all with the Maggie Holmes paper that I have picked out. Now, I immediately don't like this. So I'm just going to take my water bottle and mist it to water down that green before too much of it soaks into the paper. And that just lightens it quite significantly, as you can see. And I like that quite a bit better. So I'm going to thoroughly dry it, and I'm drying in between adding each of my colors so that the colors don't combine. I want them to stay separate instead of mixing. I didn't want the pink and the green, sorry, I didn't want the pink and the blue to mix and create purple, for example. And then I don't know what color the green would have made if it mixed with purple, but it wouldn't have been all that nice. So I needed to keep them all separate. That's why I'm drying it. And now I'm doing some drips all over it. And what I did was I just squeezed my watercolor brush so that right now I'm just cleaning it to change colors, but I squeezed my brush and let a drip just kind of go down the barrel of bristles right until it was just about to drip, and then I dipped it in my already mixed green paint and just splattered it. So I am going to slow down the video so that you can see me do that for the pink, because that's what's coming up next. But as I'm drying this, I'm realizing that it really doesn't match, and also my background paper, between my background paper and this, it really doesn't match with that Maggie Holmes collection anymore. So I'm going to my Take Me Away 6x6 paper pad, and I'm going to get a floral pattern from that. I'm going to keep the stripe from the Maggie Holmes, but I'm going to go with that floral that you see up in the top left-hand corner. So here I am just kind of getting my brush really, really loaded with water and dripping. And I wanted the drips to be a darker pink than what the watercolor is, but this is actually a little bit too dark. So you're going to see me fix that, because I don't want them to be quite such a stark contrast between that nice pale watercolor background and then to have those very vivid dots. So I am going to dry these, but as I dry them, I'm going to take my water brush, and it seems counterintuitive. I'm going to dry and wet at the same time, but I want the drops to still be circles, which is why I'm drying them, because drying them kind of like seals the surface. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it kind of keeps them into drops. And now I'm adding some more lighter pink droplets. And then I see what I'm doing. I'm just taking my water brush and I'm drying it. And then I'm just lifting up some of the pigment from the centers of those really, really dark ones. And so what that does is, because the droplets are starting to dry, they're not 100% dry, but they're starting to dry. And I'm sort of like, I'm picking up and lifting some of the pigment off of it, but I'm also at the same time depositing a little bit of water from my brush. And so what that does is it waters them down and makes them just a tad bit lighter, which is what I wanted for those droplets. And then I just sprayed the whole thing with water and dabbed it. I would be dabbing with a paper towel, but I actually don't have any paper towel in my scrap room right now. So I just dabbed it with a baby wipe. It's moist and it's not that wet. It still picks up quite a bit. And it just picked up a little bit of extra residue from the surface of the paper. So, like I said, this watercolor paper is very forgiving. So, you can always, and I'm going to fix it up even more a little bit later. So you'll see just how forgiving this kind of a technique can be. I love watercolors for that very reason. You don't have to know what you're doing. You can just play with it. And if you don't like it, just add some water or dab it off and you'll be fine. So I'm figuring out where I'm going to tear down my paper. I don't want it to be the same size that it came. I need it to be a little bit shorter. So I just sized it with my photo, and I'm just pulling up the corners to make it look a little bit more beat up, battered. And then I'm using my tiny attacher to staple it in those two places, 2 staples in each of those corners. And then the transparencies were actually lifting a little bit up off the page. So I went to my stash and got some glue dots, and I'm just going to put them in each of the corners. I'm making sure that they land under the dark part of the photo so that it's not so noticeable. And now look at that. See, there are two dark green splotches right around my nose, and it kind of like, you don't really want big dark green blobs coming out of your nose. So see what I did there? I just wet it, and then I just kind of dug at it with my fingernail, and the pigment came right up off of the surface of the paper. Now, if you were doing something fancy, or like if you were doing an actual watercolor painting, you wouldn't want to do that to the surface of your paper, because then if you go to paint over it now, it'll pill up because I have compromised the surface of the paper. But it's just a layer underneath of these transparencies, and you're really not going to see it. And I know I'm not going to do anything else with this paper. I mean, it's already covered, right? So it's not something that you would do if you were making an actual watercolor painting, but it's a good example of how when you're using mixed media, you can be a lot more flexible and less formal with how you use your supplies, and just play with them and do whatever works for you. There are no rules. So I cut a strip of that black striped paper, and I'm going to run it the length of my photo, kind of vertically. And I'm thinking about what else I can do here. I want to use this floral paper from the Take Me Away collection. So again, that stripe is from the Maggie Holmes collection from the 6x6 pad. And this one is from Take Me Away. So it's a 6x6 piece of paper once I cut the strip off of it. And so I just cut it in half so that I have two 3-inch strips. I've kind of stacked them on top of one another. And then I'm just cutting a banner on tail on each end of it. So now that banner is actually two separate pieces, as is the long diagonal striped piece. I'm going to piece them together so that they look like they're intact. It's one way to use 6x6 paper pads without and get them and kind of span a larger space. So I felt like I needed a third pattern, but I needed the third piece to be bigger than 6x6. So I have the 12x12 paper for this Take Me Away collection as well. So I just went into my 12x12 paper and grabbed that same pattern that I had chosen out of the 6x6 pad, only I just cut a piece. You saw me just tear it with my ruler to cut a piece that's the size that I needed it to be. I basically wanted it to mat the whole bunch of layers that are going to be sitting on top of it. Now I have my embellishments from the Take Me Away collection, and I'm just having a look at my recipe card, and it does call for wood veneers, one of the things to garnish the layout with. And so I'm going to use some of these. And I'm also looking at the sketch, which has some paper strips or stamps or something along the top and along the bottom. And at this point, I'm deciding to veer away from the sketch a little bit. And instead of having my photo and main layers be off center, way over to the left is where it was in the sketch. You'll see it at the end. I'm centering it instead, and I'm probably going to center my top and bottom strips as well. Now these are the thickers from the Take Me Away collection. They're the phrase thickers. It's called Dream is what the set is called. And I'm wanting to use a single word as my title here. And I want to use one of these white words, but I'm not entirely sure. It's going to take me a little while of thinking to figure out which word to use. And then I decided, of course, it didn't take very long on 4 times the speed, but I decided to go with smile. And I thought I would call this actually Selfie Smile, because this layout is all about how I take a lot more selfies since Sophia has lived with us. So Sophia was our international student last year, and she took a lot of selfies and gave me some tips, and now I feel a lot more comfortable taking selfies now. So that's what this layout is all about. So the fact that she's in the background really, it really supports the story that I want to tell. So I'm going to use these wood veneers from the Take Me Away collection, and I'm going to put some hearts in the bottom right corner and the top left corner. I'm going to replace the solid heart with the outline up in the top left. And I'm also going to use a wood veneer on the top and on the bottom. Right now they're still offset, but by the time I'm done, they're going to be more centered, those two strips on the top and on the bottom. And I'm thinking some of these stickers scattered around, maybe on the background, or maybe layered on top of some of the other embellishments. I really like them. They're from the Dear Lizzie Saturday collection, and they're called Varnish stickers. And I like them a lot. They look a little bit like rub-ons. And I already have my titles, so I don't need those stickers. But I'm just looking at some of the embellishments from the Saturday collection because just because I don't have too many embellishments from the Take Me Away collection. But those two strips that I just added, they are up in the top the top left-hand corner. It is layered over the outline of the heart, and then in the bottom right-hand corner of my layers, it's the chevron little strip that's layered on top of the solid heart. Those two pieces were from another layout that I did before. They were an extra piece. It might have been from one of the layouts I did for my texture class, or it could be just from a layout that's from the past couple of months anyways. And so what I did was I actually had run through my die cutting machine some little chevron and heart dies, and that was the negative space and of that die. I just cut it into a strip and I ran it through my sewing machine to get some machine stitches on it, and I just held on to the extra ones that I made. I didn't put all of them on that layout, and so I just hung on to them and left them in my little basket of embellishments, and now here I am just using those leftovers. Now I'm just outlining my papers here. I'm triple outlining them, and to get a nice bold outline, I'm actually moving my pen quite slowly. Of course, it looks fast. I'm doing it 4 times as fast here on the video, but in order to get a more bold or dark black outline, you just go a little bit slower. And I'm outlining just the 3 sides of these pieces because they are going to be covered. And here's the basic structure of my layout is all set and ready. So now I can start adhering things down. So I'm just going to use my regular scrapbook adhesive, and I'm just adhering that banner, and I'm going to use my grid mat to help me put the second piece on just to make sure that it is straight. I want it to look like it's a continuous piece, not like it's 2 separate pieces. I don't usually worry too much about lining things up, but when I'm trying to trick the eye into thinking that 2 pieces are 1 piece, I want it to look like it actually lines up. And of course I could have just looked at the back of it. I just didn't realize that when I was doing it, because those pieces actually do meet and overlap. So that of course will ensure that they're lined up. So before I go too much further, I just want to take the manufacturer's strip off of that background paper. Of course, that beautiful paper is from the Take Me Away collection from Pink Paisley. It's the newer Paige Evans collection. And then I wrote down the Dream Thickers, and I just keep my ingredients in a book now that I keep track of my layouts a little bit differently using some stickers on my agenda. And I will show that when I show you guys my behind the scenes process videos, like how I make my process videos. That's coming up. If not this week, I'll film it next week. So, and I'm just sticking that solid heart down with my regular dry adhesive, and I stapled those strips from the Take Me Away collection scraps from another layout. I just stapled those with my tiny attacher, and then with the outline heart, because it's smaller, I'm not going to use my dry adhesive. I'm just going to use my Tombow Mono Multi adhesive, which is my favorite adhesive for gluing paper to non-paper. And now here I have a better sense of the design of the overall finished product. It's going to be more lined up like a vertical spread of elements across the center of the page instead of having it go diagonal. And now I'm just thinking about where I'm going to use these varnish stickers from Dear Lizzie. I feel like I need a little bit more embellishments around those hearts in the top and the bottom corners. And so those are some Scraptastic word stickers. And then these gold ones are DIY from Crepe Paper. And now these ones are Pink Fresh from the Felicity collection. I really love this phrase, but the sticker is too long for any of the places that I intended to use it. And so I'm going to put it back on the sheet and pick two of the less long ones. So this is more of a chunk of a phrase. I'll read it to you. It says, simplify, be inspired, be original, work hard, enjoy. And then I put that one on the bottom because it's darker and it has a bit more weight to it. And then I'm going to play around with a couple of different things to put up here, but I'm going to end up with live every day with intention. And that one is, it's wider, like more long and horizontal, and it also has lighter colors on it, and that's at the top, so I wanted the lighter colors to be at the top. Meanwhile, I'm taking some more of those Dream Thickers, just the hearts that come with that set, and I'm sprinkling them around, and I'm also adding this little leaf. And I wanted to add a second leaf on the other side, but from a design perspective, I couldn't make it work, so I'm going to leave it off. And actually, I kind of like it better like that, because what happens is the leaf on the left balances off with the smile on the right, and they end up being more balanced this way than if I had added the leaf. Now here come those varnish stickers, and I'm just going to put this little set of 3 hearts almost exactly the same way that they were on the sticker sheet. I just spread them out a little bit more. And now I'm going to take some more hearts from these stickers. Some of them are exactly the same as the ones I already used, because I've got 2 sheets of each one. And I'm going to put them here. I'm going to fuss a little bit with the placement of these just to try to make them look a little bit more natural and less contrived. I don't want them to look like there are 3 hearts in a line like they were for a little bit there. And then I just added a 4th one just to be a little bit unexpected. And then I'll put one up at the top, and then I'll put one down at the bottom here as well, so that those little varnish hearts show up in each of my 2 main clusters and also in my secondary clusters at the top and at the bottom as well. Now I am going to adhere these things down. Now the sticker is keeping everything in place down there because it is, a sticker, so it's sticky on the other side. But I had put it down crooked because I wasn't really paying attention to where it was falling. I just kind of meant for it to just lightly be stuck there, but it ended up being actually stuck there. So I just repositioned it so that it was lined up, and then I just used my scrapbook adhesive to my tape runner to stick that strip down, and everything on the bottom is kind of falling off the edge of the page, like it's hanging off the edge, and whereas the top here, I'm making it float so that it doesn't overlap the edge of the page, and that just gives the top section a little bit more of an airy feel. It is, it's floating up there as opposed to the bottom. It's kind of sinking into the bottom. The cluster at the bottom, is sinking. And I just like that. It just kind of feels right to me. So that's the way I decided to do it. So now I just rolled out my Heidi Swap mats that I use for mist. They're just non-stick mats, but I just use them to collect up the mist. And I'm just misting off the edges of all 4 places where I have clusters here. So there's one on either side, and then one on the top and one on the bottom. And I'm going really, really light with the mist on the top and the bottom. Most of the mist sprinkles are going to be on either side, so on the left and on the right. Just a wee bit, just a couple little droplets on the top and on the bottom. So now I'm just cutting, and you can cut right through those wood veneers. They're kind of like a balsa wood, so they're a lot easier to cut through than most wood veneers. And I just cut right through it and cut that strip off the edge of the bottom. And now I'm putting a good lot of scrapbook glue dots along the, not glue dots, but they're like a dotted tape runner across the bottom of my layers. And now I just stuck it onto my background. And it was easy to know where to put it because I had designed my hearts around it. So I knew right where to put it. And now I'm taking these letter stickers from Authentique, and I'm going to spell out the word selfie. And I'm actually going to overlap these letter stickers. At first I don't, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to make them so that they overlap. That will make my word selfie a lot smaller, like a lot less wide than if I had put them all out beside one another. And it also makes them one continuous sticker, so it's a lot easier to place it. I'm going to move the dot in the eye because I need the corner of the sticker with the eye on it to underlap with the dot on the eye. I'm also just kind of smooshing it under. I had to pull back the M a little bit so that I could smoosh that selfie right under the M. And I really like how that looks. I love how that title looks. Actually, it's one of my favorite titles in a long time. Selfie just looks like it really belongs there, nestled behind the word smile. I had to clean up my workspace a little tiny bit because I had some white mist on it, and that was just Mr. Huey's in opaque white. I'm going to do my journaling here, and it took me a few seconds to figure out what I was going to write. I almost always write my journaling right off the top of my head, unless if you see me pre-write it. So it says, Sophie taught me a lot about how to take a great selfie, including that you don't need to always have a big grin. Just be yourself and face the light. And so I wrote that out with my super fine Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and then I underlined it. And I'm just kind of showing you how it looks compared to the sketch. So I veered a little bit from the sketch. So there are a couple of things on this layout that I kind of did on purpose. One is the use of black. And I think that if I had used only one layer of the transfer photo, the packing tape transfer photo, it would have been quite a bit of a grayer photo. And so I don't think I would have used the black as the accents. I think I was able to pull off the black accents because the photo was so bold once I layered the two packing tape images on top of one another. So that was something that allowed me to play with black, which I really love to use black. And then the other thing is just the fact that I veered away from the sketch to make this layout have more of a vertical feel instead of a diagonal feel. And I just like how that looks from a design perspective. I think that if I had followed the diagonal, I probably would have, I think it would have felt a little bit too predictable if I did it that way. And also there are so many of my layouts in my albums that have a diagonal design to them that whenever possible, I like the idea of kind of mixing it up and trying to vary my pages from page to page. So here are the close-up photos. I hope that you guys found this process video helpful and fun to watch. I do have a picture of me pouring water over my photo just because I thought it was kind of a funny looking photo. You don't often see that kind of a thing happening with our photos. So here is the information for the Facebook group. I also have links to the Creative Scrappers website if you want to check out the sketches. Those links will be in the information section for this video, along with the link to the video on how to do the packing tape transfer. I hope you all have a really great scrappy week.